Hi, chess friends. This is Coach Nathan. Welcome back to another chess video lesson. Hmm. So, I hope you had a great week. Today's lesson is going to be very exciting. We're going to learn. Look, we know I hope you know the value of the pieces. If not, we'll go over that. Um, and learn the exact rank and order of the pieces. That means how strong is each piece. So you should know how the pieces move and the special characteristics of the pieces. Today, the concept we're going to talk about is profitable exchanges. The value um, of each piece and trading pieces of the same value. A profitable exchange and exchange. So I noticed that a lot of young students get confused when a capture happens. They don't know who won the capture, or they always think they win the exchange or the capture, but that's not necessarily true. So first, let's talk about the rank and order of pieces. A knight can move to 8 different squares. That's in the center of the board. I can go to 8. In fact, if a knight's in the 4 center squares, or the 12 squares around the 4 center, then I can go to 8 squares. So there's 4 squares in the center of the board. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If the knight is on any one of these squares, it can jump to 8 squares. Not bad, right? Now, if you move a knight around the board off those squares, uh, off those 16 squares, then the knight's mobility has been restricted. Notice that we're not now in this box in the center. We're outside of this box where the knight can move to 8 squares. We're closer to the edge of the board. Now squares are being cut off. Here, the knight only has 6 squares. And the squares go down from there. Let's move over the knight here. Near the corner. Near the corner, the knight only has 4 squares. You put the knight close to the corner, but not yet right in the corner. The knight still has 3 squares. You put the knight in the very corner, and it only has 2 squares. Its mobility is limited the closer it is to the side of the board. That's one reason we do not want to put our knights on the side of the board, because they can't move as much. They don't have as much mobility. They're more restricted. Whenever there's knights, you have to look and see every single move they can make. Okay, so for instance, a knight here. Well, this knight can still go to 8. The reason being, it is in one of the 4 squares or the center, or one of the 12 around there. So 16 squares in the center. So now the knight is worth 3 points. Look at a bishop. A bishop is also worth 3 points. Yet a bishop from the center of the board can hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now, why is a knight that can only hit 8 squares at the most be as worth as much as a bishop that can move to 13 different squares? Why? Shouldn't the bishop be worth more points since it can move and control more squares? Well, the knight has something the bishop doesn't have. This bishop is confined to a life on the dark squares. That's its life. It can never move to light square. So although bishops are strong, bishops can aim across the board and capture something. It has the ability to capture a piece and attack clear across the side of the board. A knight can't do that. A knight cannot do that. A knight can only attack pieces that are close by. Why are they worth the same amount of points? Because a knight, as opposed to a bishop, can hop to different color squares. It can hop from dark to light, light to dark, dark to light, light to dark. It can move all around. So keep that in mind. That is why a knight is so tricky. A knight can also hop over pieces, and a bishop can't. So although the knight can't move as much, it has more options than a bishop, and then it can jump to different colored squares. It can also hop over pieces. Now let's look at the rook. A rook at the most can hit 14 different squares. That's from the center. 7 squares on the file, 7 squares across the rank, and a rook is very powerful. The rook is worth 5 points. Stronger than a bishop. Well, yeah, it can move to any color. If the rook wants to go from a light square to a dark square, it can. As opposed to the bishop that cannot, which is only 3. A rook is worth 5. It's known as a major piece. It's strong. Rooks are stronger than playing against a knight. If you have a king and a rook versus king and a bishop, this endgame is 1 for white. You can use your king and your rook, force the king to the side of the board, and checkmate it. Especially, and not in this position, but let's see here. Let me move it. Let me put this bishop on a dark color square. In this position's 1 for white. Because the bishop in this position can't help the king. The king's going to be checkmated. So you can checkmate a a king if they have a king and bishop versus king and rook. Okay, rook is stronger. Rook is worth 5 points. A bishop was worth 3, and a rook will outplay a bishop. It's not easy, but you can outplay it. Okay. Now a queen. Wow, how many squares can it go to? Let's see. And this is how we determine the relative strength of each piece is how many moves it can make. How many moves it can make, how many squares it's aiming at, how many different options it has. You can see the queen has a lot more squares that it can run to than any other piece. I mean, look at that. It dominates the amount of squares it can go to. So, clearly stronger than any other piece because it can be mobile around the board much better. How many points is the queen worth? 9. So look at the point. The queen's worth 9. The rook's worth 5. Because it can go 13 squares. Queen can go to 27. The bishop's worth 3 because it can go to 13. The knight is worth 3 as well, but it can hop to different colored squares. That's why it's as much as the bishop, and it can hop over pieces. Pawns are worth 1 point, And kings do not have a value because they are, if you capture a king, you win the game. You cannot capture a king. So let's move on. Now we know relative values and why the pieces have these values. Let's talk about exchanges. What does exchange mean in chess? Exchange in chess means you're capturing a piece that's protected. Here, if it's white to move, they can capture the queen. It is protected, so they didn't lose their queen, but it's trading 9 points for 9 points. When it's the same amount of points being traded, we call that an even exchange or fair exchange. Here, if you capture the bishop on d6, it's not a free bishop because it can be captured, but it's not a bad move. It's not a bad move to capture something that's protected. We do it all the time as chess players. You shouldn't just make a capture because you can, but keep in mind, captures are fine to make, okay? This was a protected piece, but you're trading 3 points for 3 points. That's fair. That's even. You take a bishop worth 3, they take your bishop worth 3. 3 for 3 is even. Fair exchange. Now let's look at a not so fair exchange. Okay, pretend you have the white pieces here. You have 2 pawns. Here's the white side, so they're going towards the black side. The pawn on d4, d5 is attacking the queen on c6. Of course, you'd like to take that queen. Now the queen's protected, but you don't care about that. You're not worried about it being protected. You still want to capture, because after you capture queen, worth 9 points, they are going to take your pawn, but you're not worried about that. You traded 9 points. You captured 9 points. They captured your pawn worth 1 point. 9 minus 1. You just won 8 points. That's worth it. That's called a profitable exchange. Okay, now let's look at one from black's perspective. The black rook is attacking the queen on d2. Thankfully, it's black's move. Black can make a very good move here. Now, I've seen some kids, they say, oh, I don't want to capture the queen. It's protected by the knight. But this is still a very good move to capture this queen with the rook, even though it's protected. Because a rook is worth 5 points, the queen is worth 9. You wouldn't mind trading 5 for 9. If you want to know the value you have, you always subtract. You captured 9, subtract 5 from that because they took your rook, leaving you with 4 points. And that is a great exchange, and you're winning the game. Another type of exchange you might see a lot is when a bishop or knight captures a rook. Now, if you remember, bishop's worth 3, rook's worth 5. So if you can take a lower valued piece and capture up higher, 3 captures 5. Now, you're not worried about them capturing back, because you just took 5 points. They took 3. The amount of points left over, 2. In fact, every time you capture a rook with a minor piece and the rook's protected, you win 2 points. It's actually such a common exchange, they call it the exchange. So guys, I want to practice on your own boards. I'll see you next lesson.